Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Betrayed and Destroyed the Akatsuki. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
When he felt a small weight on his chest as the sun rose, Naruto awoke with his hand immediately going to the hilt of his blade. Looking down, he noticed a young girl resting against him, and the events of the day before flooded his mind in a flood of images. Naruto absent-mindedly ran his hand over the cracked skull-like cap that adorned the young girl's green hair. In a tender moment, the child yawned and grabbed Naruto's black t-shirt, snuggling her face into his chest as he wrapped the folds of his black traveling cloak around her. As it all came back to him and he thought, he shook his head ruefully. When I left the Leaf Village, I never imagined I'd end up as a father. Flashback. Naruto's journey to get to his destination was proving to be more difficult than he had anticipated. Because of the Ino Shika Cho squad's attack a few days ago, it was now going to take 4 days to get to his destination instead of 2. Naruto was also being held up because everywhere he went, bandits, thieves, and other mercenaries appeared out of nowhere, ready to attack and take whatever Naruto had on him. However, these thugs who were constantly attacking him had no idea they were making the biggest mistake of their lives. Naruto enjoyed the brief battles with the idiots who attacked him. They were so weak, however, that they posed little if any challenge to the blonde Junin, and while this was displeasing, he took great pleasure in killing the idiots, lest they harm any innocents in the future. Before leaving the Leaf, Naruto took what he could from the bodies and incinerated them with a fire jutsu he had liberated along with several other useful jutsu scrolls from the village library. Unfortunately, Naruto could only find money, a few kunai, and an empty storage scroll among the now bloodied bodies he had killed. It didn't matter. Naruto felt he could always fill it with whatever he wanted if he had the chance or need to. It was now nearly full of money he had taken from several more prosperous bandits he had first encountered when he set out from the wave. However, Naruto would use it for the time being to store anything he had hunted, such as a dead rabbit here and there or yesterday when he had captured a particularly stupid deer in one of his snare traps. The meat would stay fresh and juicy thanks to the storage scroll, just waiting to be cooked and eaten. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the little girl stirring on his chest, and his thoughts returned to the events of the previous few days. When Naruto got a good distance away from the Ino Shika Cho team, he teleported away and promptly collapsed, both physically and mentally. Physically from overexerting himself in his fight against Choji, and mentally from seeing Ino again, as it had been 2 years since she had betrayed his heart after a year of being with him. Ino, the final member of the Trinity who had each taken turns decimating Naruto's heart. Seeing her again had brought back a lot of pain that Naruto had hoped he could bury, but couldn't. Naruto trudged on, doing his best to bury his pain, and after many hours of travel, the sun would soon set, and Naruto decided it was time to rest for the day. He heard an argument and sensed several low chakra signatures in a field ahead of him as he walked off the trail. When Naruto arrived at the clearing, he noticed that some bandits were fighting over some sort of dispute, though he wasn't sure what it was. The way they act like animals. Sickening, Naruto thought to himself as he marched towards them, sword in hand, growing both annoyed and tired of their fighting and killing of one another. The bickering bandits had no chance, and it was all over in an instant. He had saved one because this man's chakra signature was the strongest, and Naruto thought he could be useful to him in the future for what he had planned for the Akatsuki. Naruto's message was delivered along with the foreboding warning, and the fact that he had been wearing his mask when he charged in out of nowhere and easily slaughtered all of this man's comrades ensured that his message was delivered. I'd like to meet with your boss. I know you're kind, and you all follow one man. Tell him I'm looking for employment. Give him my name. Naruto Uzumaki. If I don't hear from him or you in 3 days, I will personally find you and make your life hell on earth." Then, judging by the bandit's fearful expression, he added one more emphasis. "And then I'm going to go after your wife." Needless to say, it had the desired effect, as the tan muscle-bound man had turned ghostly pale and stammered. "Do you know anything about my Ayame?" As his warped voice boomed out at him, Naruto brought his face close to him, his red and black eyes staring into the man's very soul. "Would you like to bet that I've never heard of her?" The terrified bandit shook his head frantically. He didn't want to endanger his beloved wife's life. Naruto's glare pierced his brown eyes for a second longer before he pulled away, leaving a small flare in the man's trembling palms, who instinctively clutched the small metal rod tightly, as if the small device would protect him. "You seem to be a notch above your average bandit," Naruto remarked mockingly. He then added that he was testing the man to see if he could incite a fight. "You do, in fact, have a brain." The bandit's eyes flashed with rage, but he controlled himself and did not make any aggressive moves, knowing that if he did, this demonic being of a man would kill him in an instant. "It appears that he wants to live." "Good," Naruto thought to himself before pointing to the flare in the man's hand and warning him. "Don't lose that. It could cost you your life. If you have news about your leader's response, toss it into the air. I will see it, and then you will see me again, understand?" The man nodded slowly, shakily rising to his feet, fearful of doing something that would lead to his death. "Gee, got it." He sputtered before bolting like the devil himself was hot on his tail. Naruto had decided to camp here for the night after determining that the goon would indeed deliver his message. Because the bandits' fire was still raging, Naruto decided to take a break before searching for a spring or riverbed to wash the blood from his clothes, because if he walked around smelling like blood, he would have to deal with the wild animals that roamed these parts as well. Just as Naruto was getting settled, he heard what sounded like a terrified child scream off in the distance. Leaping to his feet, Naruto focused his chakra to try to locate the child. He had pinpointed her location after a brief moment, but there were 2 chakra signatures. Naruto grumbled to himself as he dashed off to find out what was going on, as another distraction was exactly what he needed at the time. However, he knew that, as much as he had shut down his emotions and heart to people, he was not so far gone that he would let an innocent child suffer if he could avoid it. Naruto was racing through the forest at breakneck speed when he came across a clearing and one of the strangest sights he had ever seen. A strange thin man with long greasy black hair and 2 horns, one of which was broken, protruded from his head in the field ahead of him. The man also wore a skull-like mask that covered nearly the entire left side of his face. A huge crisscross X scar ran across the strange man's chest. The man's most unusual feature was that he had 3 stumps instead of arms on the left side of his body and 2 stumps on the right. The only reason Naruto deduced that the stumps were arms was because the middle arm remained on the right side of the man's body and was holding some sort of scythe-like weapon. The blonde jinchuriki watched in awe as the emaciated-looking man swung his weapon downwards, chasing something. Naruto then noticed that the man was chasing a terrified little girl in a simple green gown who was fleeing for her life. Naruto's eyes narrowed with rage at this, and when he saw the young girl stumble and fall, he vanished in an instant with a yellow flash. "Nell, it's finally time for you to die, you little bitch." Noitra Gilga exclaimed as he swung his transformed Zanpakuto in a murderous arc towards the little girl on the ground. Clank. Nelliel2 Odelschwank's ears echoed with the sound of metal hitting metal as she closed her eyes and awaited the blow that would end her life. When the little green-haired girl tentatively opened her eyes, she was met with a perplexing sight. A strange man dressed in black with blonde hair and wearing a mask similar to the one atop her own head stood between her and Noitra. This man was also holding a massive Zanpakuto, which was preventing Neutra's scythe blade from falling any further. Both the former Espada Arankar No. 5 and the former Leaf Junin glared at each other while pressing their blades against each other. Neutra hissed angrily at the man, unable to overpower this blonde stranger. "I'm not sure who you are, but this isn't about you, human. Leave now, and I'll let you live." "Humph, brave words, Spider-Man, or should I just call you Stumpy, given that the majority of your arms have already been hacked off?" "Foolish human, let me attend to my business with that trembling little bitch behind you, and once I've absorbed her powers, I'll regrow my limbs and show you why you should have left when I offered it to you, and then I'll track down and finish off that jingle bell-haired wearing freak who did this to me." "I'm afraid I can't do that, Stumpy. I highly doubt killing a little girl will get you what you claim, and besides, if killing a little girl is what it takes for you to gain power, it's probably better that I just finish you off now." "Fool. That little girl isn't even human. She's an Arankar, just like me, and you have no idea the power we have when we're fully charged." "He's right, Kit. I've heard of these Arankars and I can sense great power in the little girl, but it's dormant and I don't think she knows how to access it, so I'd advise not letting this guy succeed in killing her and gaining that power." Kyuubi's voice echoed in Naruto's brain. "I hadn't intended to let him succeed," Naruto said aloud. "What?" "Sorry, Stumpy, I was talking to someone else." "Back to you. I don't care if that little girl is a human, an Arankar, or whatever. I'm telling you to walk away, because I won't let you kill her. So I suggest you accept my offer or suffer the consequences." Neutra's reaction was to leap back several feet and raise his transformed Zanpakuto into an attack position before spitting with malevolence and hatred. "I'm going to enjoy killing you, meddling human." Yeah, whatever, but you say you can regrow your arms, but can you regrow your head? What?" That was the last thing Neutra could say before Naruto vanished in a yellow flash in front of the startled Arankar, swinging his Zanpakuto and cutting through Neutra's scythe and neck in one fluid motion. As her former Espada comrade's head rolled off of his body and fell to the ground, Nell, who had been watching the entire scene with fascination and fear, uttered one word in shock. "Noya Tra." It was then that Nell succumbed to her stress and passed out, much to Naruto's chagrin, as he looked down at her sleeping form and thought to himself. "What am I supposed to do now? Stop whining and return her to your camp, Kit. You and I both know you won't leave her out here alone." Back at his camp, Naruto sat down on the ground, his back against a nearby tree, and gazed at Nell, who was sleeping peacefully on his bedroll. Meanwhile, the Kyuubi no Yuko praised the boy for his merciless slaughter of Neutra and was pleased with how smoothly and effortlessly it had been carried out. "Well done, Kit. You've done this old fox proud." Naruto simply sighed and leaned back against the tree, resting the sore skin of his back against it. "I didn't do it to please you, damn fox. I just can't stand the thought of anyone preying on defenseless innocent lives while I'm around." "Well, if you're so damn noble, Kit, why are you planning on joining a gang of thieves and murderers?" "Because I need an army, and a big one, if I'm going to the land of spring to free Koyuki and her people from the Akatsuki. So I need to find some potential allies, and this bandit king and the men he leads that I've been hearing so much about these past few days sound exactly like what I need to build that army. An interesting and creative plan, it has merit. And with any army going to battle, there should be plenty of blood and death, which I enjoy. I wish I could join you on the battlefield if your father hadn't sealed me up in this blasted body." Naruto chuckled as he threw a nearby twig into the fire, relishing the sound of the roaring flames and the welcome heat they provided. "It was you who attacked the Leaf Village. You already knew it wasn't my fault, but Madara Uchiha." Naruto agreed silently and tossed more broken branches into the flames. He then examined his blade for any dents or scratches from his recent fights. Looking at the reflected firelight from Zabuza's impressive weapon, Naruto realized that Zabuza's Zanpakuto was a perfect reminder of the path he had now chosen to walk. He would forge his own destiny and go wherever he pleased once he had liberated the Spring Country and defeated the Akatsuki. Nell awoke a few hours later to the smell of food cooking in a pot. Sitting up and wrapping her arms around her legs, she looked around, unsure of where she was. "Do you want something to eat, little one?" Nell squeaked in surprise when she heard a metallic echo of a voice and turned to see the same mask-wearing man who had rescued her from Neutra stirring a blackened pot over a fire. The little Arrancar wasn't sure about this strange man, but she wasn't afraid of him for some reason. Naruto brought a plate with a healthy portion of whatever he had been cooking onto it and placed it in front of Nell, along with a cup of water. Naruto returned to the steaming pot, dished out some food for himself, and sat down across from his new companion, taking off his mask and revealing his face to her before saying, "Go ahead, eat. I'm not the best cook in the world, but I promise it's edible." Nell hesitated for a moment and carefully sniffed the food before deciding it was fine and grabbing a sizable chunk of the food in her cherub little hand and stuffing it into her mouth, causing her cheeks to puff out comically. Naruto chuckled as he saw this, before pointing to his fork and saying, "There's no need to eat so much in one bite, little one. You can use a fork like I do." "Little one, I can't keep calling you that. What's your name?" The little Arrancar in question looked up at the much larger man, puzzled as to why Naruto had inquired about her name. In response to his question, she tilted her head slightly to the side and scrutinized Naruto's face. Naruto was perplexed by the young girl's reaction to him. For one thing, she didn't seem scared of him or his mask, despite having witnessed him decapitate someone. That lack of reaction surprised the blonde jinchuriki. Before he could think about the little girl any further, Naruto heard a whispery voice, the same one that had told him to take up Zabuza's blade as his own. The voice was too soft for Naruto to understand what it was saying as he strained to recognize them before a soft call broke his concentration. "My name is Nell 2 Odelschwank, but my friends and family call me Nell 2. Nell 2, that's a lovely name for a lovely lady. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, but everyone calls me Naruto." Nell blushed and stammered when Naruto called her pretty. "Do you think I'm pretty, Naruto? Can I call you Nell-chan because I think you're very pretty?" Before Naruto continued, Nell nodded and smiled. "Can you tell me where you're from and if you have any parents or loved ones who are looking for you, Nell-chan?" Nell's face was sad and forlorn, and Naruto could see tears welling in her eyes as she answered in a choked voice. "Nell is from a place called Las Noches, but I don't want to go back because it's not a nice place. Nell has no parent or anyone looking for her. Ichigo, Peshi, Dondoshaka, Bawabawa, they're all gone from the Arrancar War with the Tool Society. Nell is all alone and has been for a long time." Naruto could hear the same painful tone in Nell's voice that he had when he spoke about his own loneliness and was debating what to do at the time. "Just take the kid as your own and be done with it, you're not going to leave her alone and you know it," Kyuubi grumbled. Naruto turned back to look down at the little girl and asked, groaning to himself as he realized Kyuubi was probably correct. "Do you really have no one, Nell-chan?" Nell only sniffled and bowed her head before softly saying, "Nell no longer has anyone. How should I proceed?" Naruto pondered, perplexed. Meanwhile, Kyuubi had decided that his vessel's musings on the subject were becoming grating. So he took it upon himself to project into Naruto's mind an image of Nell alone in the woods at night, with several pairs of menacing eyes peering all around her in the dark. "You bastard fox, that's a damn dirty low blow." Naruto yelled angrily in his head. "You say, Kit. Naruto exhaled a heavy sigh of resignation at this point. Naruto knew he couldn't just leave her here because the Kyuubi's little picture had done the trick, but he wasn't exactly good parent material, so what choice did he have? How can I be a father to someone when I'm still a child? Given what I've done recently and what I intend to do, I'm not exactly the ideal father a girl should have. Come on, kid, show some spine. If this kid can handle seeing you lop off someone's head and isn't freaked out by that mask you're wearing or the creepy voice it gives you, I'd say she won't mind what you're planning as long as you two are together. Naruto knelt and cupped Nell's chin so he could look her in the eyes, saying sincerity. Nell-chan, if you don't want to be alone any longer, you can come with me. Nell opened her eyes wide and trembled slightly, as the prospect of no longer being alone excited her. She liked this Naruto and wanted to stay with him, but then she remembered Ichigo and the others she had lost and became terrified of losing Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki noticed the change in Nell's demeanor and inquired in a soothing tone. What's the matter, Nell-chan? Do you not want to be with me? Nell would like to be with you very much, Naruto, but Nell is worried. What will happen to Nell if you leave like Ichigo and the others? Nell still misses them, and if you leave like them, Nell will be all alone once more. I swear to you, Nell-chan, I'm not going away like Ichigo and the others. You're a promise. I swear it's a lifetime promise, Nell. Nell smiled brightly before leaping up and tightly hugging Naruto. Naruto and his surrogate daughter giggled and played for a few minutes before each of them yawned in unison, both of their mouths opening wide at the same time. Naruto noticed this and chuckled before patting the ground beside him. Come here. Flashback concludes. That's how Naruto ended up with a little Arrancar girl named Nell as a daughter. As he looked down at Nell, who was sleeping and snuggling up to him in his lap, he could tell she was happy by her happy face. However, as content as Nell was, Naruto was still concerned about the situation he had gotten himself into. A daughter must always be protected by her father, Naruto pondered before wondering what he was going to do next. Being a father had not been in his plans, and yet here he was, a single father with no say in the matter. I don't mind looking after her. I just don't know how. Naruto thought to himself before sighing, closing his eyes to think, only to open them again about a minute later when he felt a tug on his shirt. As he reopened them, he was met with a startling sight. The girl was now amazingly awake and with life-filled eyes looking at him for attention, which Naruto didn't know how to give because he had no experience as a parent. Are you hungry, Nell-chan? Asked the blonde Jinchuriki, before noticing a quick nod from the girl and the sound of two stomachs grumbling, making them both blush in embarrassment. He patted her on the head before gently lifting her off his lap as he stood up and placed her on his left shoulder, handing her a ration bar he had scavenged from a dead bandit. Nell didn't seem to mind as she clapped her tiny hands together several times before eating the meal, seemingly unconcerned about the lack of flavor in her mouth, as these things were pretty bland. She also appeared to enjoy the ability to see things from a much higher altitude. She now pumped a tiny fist into the air and made a loud declaration all her own, yet very familiar, as a certain blonde had often shouted it at the top of his lungs. Believe it, let Naruto go. Naruto stumbled in surprise as he heard his own once favorite saying come from the mouth of this little girl whom he had now adopted as his daughter. But then he calmed himself and shrugged his shoulders in amusement before gathering his belongings and returning to the road with Nell perched on his shoulder to continue his journey. As they walked, Naruto's new daughter was practically bouncing up and down on his shoulder with unrestrained energy. Naruto knelt and sank into a runner's crouch as he approached the road, before giving his daughter a quick glance and saying, "Alright, Nell-chan, let's go. Hopefully, we'll find somewhere to eat soon that serves decent food." Naruto then reapplied his mask and added, Hold on tight, we've lost a lot of time, and I need to run fast to make it up, okay? Okie dokie. Let's go. Nell exclaimed, her eyes bright with life and energy, nodding her head in agreement. She's certainly energetic, Naruto thought as he pushed off the ground with both hands and feet and sped down the road, Nell squealing with delight at being able to go so fast and at such a height. Yay. Naruto came to a halt as he heard a voice whispering in his head. As he looked to the left and right, his feet dug into the ground and kicked up a large cloud of dust, causing Nell to cough. Why did we cough? Stop, Naru-kun. As the dust settled, he took a quick look around. Something was there, but he couldn't see it or feel it. Do you get that? Naruto asked his tenant internally. I don't feel anything, you must be paranoid, Kit. Perhaps we should find an inn so you can fully rest. While silently declaring, Naruto shook his head, eliciting a puzzled look from Nell. I don't require sleep. I'm fully awake, and someone or something is with us. I don't detect anyone. Naruto was getting frustrated because he couldn't find this strange presence that seemed to be watching him and that only he was aware of. Of course I do. Now, please stop talking so I can concentrate on finding it. The demon lord snorted in disdain before grumbling his agreement. Alright, I'll keep quiet for the time being. The rogue nin closed his eyes and stood stone still for a moment, free of any more voices in his head. Naruto's adoptive daughter's voice faded into the background as he searched for anything out of the ordinary, not with his eyes or ears, but with his spirit. Naruto sensed something, but it was far away and not moving. Was it a danger? He couldn't be certain. However, someone or something was present. Who visits there? In his mind, the blonde jinchuriki yelled. Unfortunately, the only response he received was silence. This was becoming tiresome, so Naruto reverted to normal vision and opened his eyes to find Nell still perched on his shoulder, her hazel-colored eyes filled with both curiosity and concern. Are you alright, Naru-kun? Naruto smiled ruefully as he reached up to ruffle Nell's green hair, making her laugh. I'm fine, Nell too. All I was looking for was someone. Arrancar frowned at Naruto's despondent expression before leaning over and kissing him on the forehead, as any good daughter would, and asked. Does Naru-kun need a wife-chan, or is he lonely? Naruto nearly fell to the ground and blushed in response to his surrogate daughter's question, exclaiming exasperatedly. I can't just pick up a wife-chan out of nowhere, Nell too. Why not? Asked little Nell, inquisitively. As a tick mark appeared on Naruto's head, he grumbled under his breath. Already irritated by his inability to locate the mysterious presence he sensed, Naruto accidentally yelled at Nell in a fierce snarl as he reached for his mask. Because that isn't how things work. Nell sniffled, and tears welled up in her eyes, causing his hand to come to a halt. Nell didn't mean to irritate Naru-kun. He smacked himself across the face mentally. You idiot baka. Stupid, dumb. Look at what you've done. Naruto did the only thing he could think of to avoid making her cry, as the invisible dam that held her tears back was about to burst wide open any moment now. So he changed the mood by reaching up and grabbing her under the arms, causing her sniffles to stop as she wondered what he was about to do. Naruto gave Nell a wicked grin, and she responded by sticking out her tongue, setting the stage for what he had planned. See, mere you. Cackled Naruto, and then he mercilessly tickled her, causing the little Arrancar to squeal with delight as she howled with delight. Naru-kun. Tickle me. Exactly. Naruto decided that Nell had had enough of the torture and stopped his tickle attack, leaving her laughter to fade away as she gasped for air. He paused for a moment to catch his breath, wondering what had brought this all about in the first place. Then it hit him like a Rock Lee boot to the face. Suddenly, he had a flashback, or, to be more precise, flashbacks. Images and memories blurred as they raced through his mind at breakneck speed. Memory recall. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I can't be with you any longer. What exactly are you on about, Hinata-chan? My father has set me up in an arranged marriage. I'm getting married next week. What do you mean, Ma married, with? With whom? Hinata finally forced herself to look up and see Naruto's pained expression. With tears in her eyes, she reached up to kiss his cheek and softly said, along with Kiba-san. Kiba. But you love me more than Kiba. It makes no difference who I love, Naruto-kun. What do you mean it doesn't matter? It always matters. No, it doesn't, because I'm getting married to Kiba next week, and nothing can change that. Of course, Hinata-chan, we can change that. We'll go to Ba-chan Tsunade for help or just run away together, but you don't have to marry Kiba, especially when you don't love him. You don't have to do this, you love me and I love you. Naruto looked down and saw Hinata's pained sadness before leaping into his arms and holding her so tight, afraid to let her go, as she wept into his chest and chokedly said, I'm sorry, but Lady Tsunade can't help me, and I have no choice but to marry Kiba. You have a choice. Why don't you stand up to your father and say no? Because I can't. Why? Naruto yelled, tears streaming down his cheeks, before pushing Hinata away from him. I'm sorry, Naru-kun, but I can't tell you why. I want to refuse this marriage, but I can't refuse my father on this matter. You mean you won't refuse your father as you always do? Naruto sneered. Please believe me, Naru-kun. I love you with all of my heart and soul, Hinata begged. Yeah, you love me, but not enough to refuse your father or clan from marrying someone else. Goodbye Hina-chan. I hope you have a happy life, Naruto said bitterly before turning around and walking away, leaving Hinata sobbing uncontrollably on the ground. Flashback concludes. As he saw other images flash through his mind, Naruto remembered the feelings of grief that had overwhelmed him, the pain, the loss, so much to bear, too much to remember. Memory recall. I love you, Ino-chan. I'm sorry I couldn't say those words to you 6 months ago when you said them to me. I was too scared and wrapped up in the pain of what had happened with Hinata. But you asked me to give you a chance, and I'm so glad I did. Being with you has saved me from the pain and despair I thought would never go away. I know this seems sudden, but you were right, Ino-chan, you are the one. Naruto then leaned in and pressed his soft lips against hers. Ino found it difficult to resist. She liked how his lips felt when they touched hers, how it lit a fire in her soul. But she couldn't. She couldn't, no matter how much she wanted to. Naruto, Ino coughed in a choked voice, breaking off the kiss. I'm not in love with you anymore. She exclaimed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Naruto stared at her, rigid and motionless, the hurt in his voice clear as he found the words. What do you mean you no longer love me? You told me you loved me. Did I do something, Ino-chan? Please tell me what it is so I can fix it. Naruto-kun, you didn't do anything. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I still love you as a friend, but it can never be more than that. Why, Ino-chan? Please explain. I'm in a relationship with someone else. Ino exclaimed, more to persuade herself than to the now broken boy standing before her. Shikamaru stepped out from the shadows of the trees and walked over to the weeping Kunoichi, while Naruto looked back and forth between his friend, who couldn't look him in the eyes, and his now blonde ex-girlfriend before reaching down and placing her hand in the Nara boy's hand. When Naruto did this, Ino was taken aback, and she looked up, gasping in surprise at the face Naruto now bore, and she noticed a brief flicker of pain flash through his eyes before he dropped the engagement ring onto the ground and walked away into the night in silence. Flashback concludes. When he had brought the Uchiha back and fulfilled his promise to the girl, another image flashed through his mind, one of Sakura rushing past him toward Sasuke to attend to his injuries. What pathetic bullshit. A voice rang out inside his head, but it was not the Kyuubi's, and it was dripping with venom and disdain, as Naruto found himself standing on a white plain, with images of his time with Sakura, Hinata, and Ino flying around him, as if he were caught in the middle of this storm of his past. Who are you? Naruto inquired, as images from his past flashed through his mind. A dark silhouette appeared in response, indistinguishable at the time, but with a dark, ominous, and deadly aura to it. I had no idea going through your mind would be such a chore. You really are an idiot at times, as your women did a number on you. Naruto frowned as he clenched his fists, all the while receiving images of mistakes he had made in the past. Whoever you are, why are you making me go through this again? An image of him letting go of Ino and taking Shikamaru's hand in hers as he walks away without saying anything. Screaming his rage at Sakura until he snapped and went rogue. Standing outside the temple at Hinata's wedding, unable to object or stop the proceedings but desperately wanting to, I caught a fleeting glimpse through the window of Hinata and she of him, and how her pale eyes had looked deep into his, the sadness visible in them before she turned her gaze away from his. Grief overwhelmed Naruto, who placed his hands over his ears as the voice in his head droned on. I am truly disappointed. Naruto nearly fell backward in shock as the figure revealed itself to be Momochi Zabuza himself, but something was different about him. Gone was his usual outfit and harsh attitude, and now he just seemed disappointed and sad, while his outfit appeared to be a black kimono? Are you the one who has been conversing with me? Zabuza snorted, his sneer visible through the wrappings that covered the lower half of his face. Look, we've got a winner. Why are you doing this to me? Pleaded Naruto. Zabuza raised his free hand and jabbed the rogue nin in the chest with one of his fingers. I let you keep this weapon because I remembered your will of fire from years ago when you battled me in Haku, and I thought you'd be a better master of it than I ever was, but if these little memories of your women playing you for a fool are too much for you to handle, then perhaps I overestimated you. The blonde Jinchuriki's voice was laced with hate, sadness, determination, and so much more. I may have made some stupid mistakes with the women I've chosen to love, but I've put that behind me. Right now, I have a friend who needs my help, and I'm not going to be done in by some old rotting corpse of a ninja. Despite his iron determination, the next words of the infamous demon of the mist threw Naruto off guard. I'm not an old rotting corpse of a ninja. I'm that ninja's soul or spirit, and I only exist within the confines of my Zanpakuto, which you now wield. Because you now hold my blade, I'm able to link up with your mind alone, which is why your furry tenant and no one else in the living world can sense me. So, what do you want from me? What I want is to see my blade reach its full power potential, and I believe you have what it takes to unlock my blade's true capabilities. You certainly show more promise in doing so than I ever did when I was alive. A split second later, the blade appeared in Naruto's hand, spinning it around and sheathing it in the strap on his back. Why did you contact me in this manner? And why did you torture me with those memories? Because I can only contact you once before fading away to another plane of existence. I needed to know if you would be mentally and emotionally strong enough to handle what is to come, and to be honest, I'm still not fully convinced that you are. But I have little choice now, take this. Zabuza handed Naruto a piece of parchment, the tan paper old and worn with age but miraculously holding itself together. Gently unfolding the parchment, Naruto discovered it had a series of landmarkings and paths written on it. It was a map, he realized as he looked up at Zabuza, who began to fade away, as if drawn by some unseen cue. What's up with the map? Listen carefully. Follow that map. It will lead you to an old hideaway of mine. When I last checked, it was still in pretty good shape. You will meet a man there. Show him that blade, and he will let you pass. From there, you will begin your journey to unlock the power of your Zanpakuto. A power you will need for your upcoming battles if you want to save your friend. Naruto reached out for Zabuza, but his hand passed right through the apparition as he called out to the fading nin. Hey, I still have a few questions for you. However, Zabuza's spirit had vanished, and his voice echoed after his now invisible body. Those are not my questions, farewell. Naruto's eyes opened and he sucked in a ragged breath, realizing that what had seemed like minutes in speaking with Zabuza's spirit had only been a few seconds in real time. Naruto also felt something and looked down to see it was the map that Zabuza had given him in his hand. Nell stopped talking as the blonde missing nin stared at the piece of paper in his hand, her intensely curious gaze now locked on the scratched headband he wore around his neck. What was that? Naruto blinked as he felt a tug on the headband and the fabric slipped past his neck as it came loose, but he ignored it because he was still trying to figure out what had just happened. It was only a few seconds here, but it felt like 10 minutes, in whatever that place was. Nell was oblivious to her adoptive father's musings, fixated on the shiny metal hite she held, lovingly running her hands over it like a new toy. Naru-kun, this is really lovely. May I have it? Hearing Nell's question jolted Naruto out of his reverie, and he soon found himself staring down at her, smiling as she looked up at him. Naruto knelt down, placed her back on his shoulder, and said, Do you want to put on my headband? Nell eagerly nodded as she hung it in front of his face. Arankar replied before her face fell as she realized something. But I'm not sure how to tie a knot. As he took the headband from her, Naruto sighed. Stay put. After 1 minute. Nell had a bright smile on her face, and her new scratched headband was shining brightly from around her throat, just like Naruto had. Naruto squealed with delight as he ran down the road, following the map that his surrogate daughter had given him. Thank you so much, Naru-kun. You're welcome, Naruto murmured as he turned left at a nearby river, running alongside the swiftly flowing water. Where did we get the map? Was another inquisitive question from Nell. This comes from a friend of mine. When are we getting breakfast? Soon. How much time? Oh boy. This is going to be a long day, Naruto thought silently as he rolled his eyes. He grinned with amusement as he ran into the morning light, while his adopted daughter Nell laughed at the speed he was running and chastised him. Naru-kun, hurry up. Naruto chuckled as some of Kyuubi no Yuko's red chakra misted around him, increasing his power and speed. Hold on, Nell-chan, this could get hairy. As the light glistened off her headband, the little green-haired Arankar gripped his shoulders tightly, her eyes filled with eager excitement and anticipation. Yeah. Let's go. Then, as if it were possible, Naruto increased his speed even more, turning him and his new daughter into a black and green blur to anyone who happened to see them. Uchiha Madara frowned as he sat in Princess Yukiya Fujikaze's throne room. According to Zetsu, it had been more than a week since the Yukiya's vassals had made contact with the Kyuubi no Yuko container in Wave Country. However, Zetsu reports that Naruto has yet to appear at the boat that will transport him to the Land of Spring. It appears that he detected a trap. Madara thought to himself, sly little devil. Apparently, Jinchuriki was no longer the idiot he used to be. If he had been, the baka should have run here as fast as his legs or a boat could carry him. Naruto had always been abrasive and should have been easy prey for the remaining Akatsuki members. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and for the second time in his life, the first Uchiha cursed himself for co-founding that dreadful village with the first Hokage. This stupid Gaki had apparently learned caution somewhere along the way and now seemed to be exercising a great deal of it. It appears that this will not be as simple as I had hoped. Don't think I've forgotten our little game, Uzumaki. You may have gotten smarter since the war, but I'll have my revenge, and once I've got you in my clutches. As he gazed upon the havoc he had wreaked throughout the Land of Spring, which was now covered in deadly blizzards and lethal avalanches, he let out a sinister cackle. He'd have to come sooner or later. Although the Kyuubi brat had grown wary of a trap, he would never abandon a friend in need. You will die. His ranting was cut short when he felt the presence of Zetsu behind him, causing him to pause and gaze out the lone window before him into the snowy night. Yes, what exactly is it? The plant man paused for a moment before speaking, both halves equally afraid to deliver the news that he was about to deliver. Madara cut him off as he stamped a steel-toed boot into the room's icy floor, cracking it and making the base shudder ever so slightly. His back was still turned, but you didn't need to see his face to know he wasn't happy. Didn't you lose her? Zetsu gave a stiff nod and braced himself for the worst, raising a hand in front of his face to deflect a potential attack, fearing for his life. It never arrived. Leader Sama? Was his nervous question, as he waited for an answer from the radically powerful Uchiha, who was standing motionless. Tell Suigetsu and Deidara to keep looking for her. Failure is not acceptable. I want to find her. Now. The deadly tone in his voice almost made Zetsu feel sorry for the two Akatsuki members, and he turned to leave with a grateful bow. Naruto muttered to himself as he looked at the map. Explore the abandoned factory? What the hell happened? Nell appeared more excited and inquired. What about a factory? The scene was gray and dreary, with a dark and abandoned factory set against the backdrop of a mist-covered morning sun. It was the only sign remaining of a long-abandoned village that had stood quietly amongst the forest, and it was peaceful despite the dull gray of the former plant, which stood out now amongst nature. That tranquil peace was soon shattered, as a section of the third floor was smashed open, leaving a massive hole from which a streak of gray and yellow leapt. The figure hit the ground with a loud thud, and the sheer force of her all forced her to one knee, as she had now broken something in her left leg. She wore a ragged outfit that was in tatters, and her left arm hung loosely at her side, as it had. For a brief moment, she dared to hope that she had lost them, but she was mistaken. Then, as if in slow motion, two Akatsuki cloaked figures landed behind her, unfazed by their fall, while she was out of breath and badly hurt, and the one holding a sword sneered down at her as she looked over her shoulder at him, fear all over her. It appears you're out of luck. Deidara, the other Akatsuki member, smirked as he reached into his clay pouch. She was running for her life, but it appears that her time has come to an end. You caused us a lot of grief back there. Despite her fear, the woman had the audacity to spit in the face of her captor, who gave her a disgusted look as he wiped away the saliva. You spoiled brat. Deidara spit angrily. Suigetsu frowned at her defiance and unsheathed Samahata, feeling grateful that Madara had blessed him with one of the legendary 7 swords of the mist after its original owner, Hoshigaki Kisame, was killed during the Fourth Great Shinobi War. As she felt the rough skin of his shark-like blade on her neck, the young dark blonde woman stiffened. Help. She mumbled weakly, but no one came. Help. Pricked Naruto's ears. Deidara burst out laughing. Who would want to assist a jinchuriki? As the sword came towards her in a downward arc, something inside of her snapped. Get out. She yelled. A blue aura surrounded her and 2 tails burst forth from that cloak-like chakra, as her appearance became more feral, while the sheer intensity of her energy forced them back and away from her, as she screamed with rage at her 2 pursuers. Please leave me alone. The blue chakra cloak flickered out a second later, much to her horror, as exhaustion took its toll and left her gasping for breath and barely able to stand. Looking down at her hands, she felt her brief glimmer of hope fade away, along with all feeling in her legs, as her knees buckled. And no. She stammered as her knees collided with the ground, barely summoning enough strength to catch herself on her hand, let alone try to summon the chakra again. She had nothing left. Suigetsu laughed as chakra leaked into the bandages that wrapped around his blade. Thank you for the meal, he said calmly as he strode forward, sword in hand. Now, since you're not behaving, I believe I need to take an arm. As he raised his blade, his jagged teeth formed a cruel smile on his face. Time seemed to slow. When the flow of time resumed, he swung his sword down. The defeated woman simply closed her eyes and awaited the agony. It never came, as she heard a fierce snarl followed by a surprised cry, and she opened her eyes in terror to the shock of her life. A tall blonde-haired man stood in front of her, holding back Suigetsu's blade with his own impressive sword. While Nell hid in a nearby tree, an amused grin appeared on his face, and with his other hand, he reached across to his mask and slowly, deliberately slid it on, indicating that he was in battle mode, as he sarcastically asked in a hollow metallic echo of a voice. Do you mind if I join the boys at the party? The young woman was stunned as a shadow clone of her savior helped her to her feet. After all, someone had heard her. Tsunade was shocked when she heard the news from Ino and asked in disbelief. He knocked out Shikamaru and brutally beaten Choji to the point of coma? The Yamanaka heiress nodded sadly. It had taken her 3 days to bring her injured teammates back to the Leaf Village, and Ino was exhausted from her ordeal with Naruto on all levels, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Due to her exhaustion, Ino could only say, yes. Tsunade shook her head in stunned silence before turning her gaze to a picture of Jiraiya and Naruto on her desk and commenting with sadness. He's changed over the years. He's no longer the Naruto we knew. Hokage-sama. I'd like to ask for permission to pursue Naruto. I may be able to. Tsunade slammed her hands down on the desk, while Ino winced from the jarring interruption. No way, you're a big part of the reason he's like this. You were under no obligation to pursue him. In fact, given what has transpired, I should recall Team Guy before they come into contact with him. She became enraged when she heard a knock at the door. What exactly is it? Tsunade roared, as she was not in the mood for any pleasantries. An anxious Anbu burst through the door, completely unaware of the situation. Lady Hokage Tsunade, we have learned that Hinata Inuzuka has gone missing and has left the Leaf Village within the last few days. We only learned of this when we caught several Inuzuka clan members attempting to leave the village in pursuit of her. Her husband and Inuzuka clan heir Kiba Inuzuka believes she has gone off in pursuit of the missing nin Naruto Uzumaki. Nothing happened for a moment, as an eerie pall of silence fell over the Hokage's office, before the buxom blonde Hokage let out a shout that seemed to echo throughout the Leaf Village. What? Suigetsu was still confident that he could take this interfering little punk despite the fact that his blade was being held at bay, as evidenced by the jagged zigzag-toothed grin he gave the former Leaf Nin. It appears that our little Nibby vessel has a bodyguard. Then his pupils constricted as he recognized the sword held by his potential opponent. That's Zabuza blade. Senpais, what are you doing wielding one of the legendary 7 swords of the mist? I'll kill you for touching it with your lowly hands. As Yugito was pushed up against a nearby tree by his shadow clone, Naruto laughed. Lowly hands, huh? Better the blade in my hands than yours. Nope. I'm no bodyguard. I just happened to be passing through when I saw you two ladies picking on that injured girl over there, and I wondered, why are the women of the Akatsuki attacking her? She's a jinchuriki, just like you, Kit, and she carries the two-tailed cat demon Nibby within her, Kyuubi said inside Naruto's head. Naruto relished the opportunity to let off some steam, and who better to target than the organization that had caused him and others like him so much grief and pain. The deaths of these two would be an excellent message to send to Madara. A message saying, "You're up next." As they both angrily shouted in unison, a tick mark appeared on the faces of Suigetsu and Deidara, who were not enjoying Naruto's insulting verbal jabs at their gender. "We are not females." "Really? Are you sure?" "I mean, you both look like girls," Naruto exclaimed, surprised. "No, we're not." "Alright, if you say so, no need to get your pants twisted." Suigetsu growled in rage before retracting his sharkskin scaled blade and raising the weapon, indicating he was ready for a fight. "Wait a minute, Suigetsu, I recognize this guy. He's the Nine Tails Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yuko, Naruto Uzumaki. I haven't seen him since the war, but I'm sure it's him. This is the guy who defeated Sasuke-sama and was the war leader. I'm certain of it. Remember, Suigetsu, we need this guy alive as well as the Nibby vessel, and if you do manage to wound him, don't make it lethal or else Leader Sama will make us pay." Early, Deidara declared, warily eyeing the rogue nin, as he did all Jinchuriki unless they were belly up and dead. When Sasuke killed him years ago, the former rock nin learned the hard way to be cautious. Deidara knew he would have died if Madara hadn't used the Edo Tensei technique to revive him. Unfortunately, Madara wasn't as skilled at the technique as Orochimaru or his protege Kabuto. As the ancient Uchiha had warned him, if he was killed while attempting to take down the Kyuubi container, he would not be able to return. He took a step back, deciding that prudence was in order, and let his hot-headed partner deal with the Jinchuriki. Suigetsu didn't seem to mind because he was preoccupied with other matters, specifically how Naruto had obtained that weapon. "You have Zabuza's sword, and he let you have it." Suigetsu wondered, perplexed, how this Gaki could have obtained the sword without being cursed, as most grave robbers and other thieves who had attempted to steal the blade had been. Does that imply he's unlocked the blade? Deidara was also taken aback when he felt Naruto's chakra slowly rising to unimaginable levels and thought to himself, "This complicates matters." The woman Naruto had rescued, on the other hand, seemed to doubt her savior's combat ability. She attempted to stand up using her unbroken hand, only for the clone to firmly place a hand on her unbroken shoulder and hold her down, preventing her from doing anything rash. Needless to say, she objected, but the copy easily held her in place despite her feeble attempts to break free. "Baka!" she exclaimed, drawing a stare from Naruto. You say something?" Naruto replied casually in his hollow metallic echo of a voice, his soulless eyes staring back at her. "Run!" she yelled as Suigetsu raised his sword to attack. "Run! I'm a Jinchuriki, and I couldn't beat them. What makes you think you can?" As red chakra began to bubble around Naruto and peel off sections of his exposed skin, she froze in mid-sentence. Think you can win?" she murmured, as not one, not two, but 4 tails of red chakra slowly grew out of Naruto's Kyuubi cloak, and she silently realized. He, too, is a jinchuriki. Naruto raised a red thumb, and she thought she saw him smile, even if it was behind the mask. The tone of the blonde jinchuriki was calm but reproachful, like a teacher lecturing an ignorant student. "That's correct, but you only have the nibi." All of Naruto's exposed skin had peeled away, leaving his skin red, despite the fact that he had retained his human appearance, clothing, and everything. The leaf-missing nin then shifted into an attack stance, his voice distorted but full of pride. "But I have the 9-tailed Kyuubi no Yuko demon, and there is nothing I cannot do with his power, especially against such a weak opponent like her." He threw back his head and let out an insane cackle a split second later, all the while Samahata was on a collision course with his head swung from the right and ready to lop it off in one brutal swing. Either this kid has finally lost it and has gone suicidal, or he actually does have the power to defeat us, and personally, I believe the latter. Deidara murmured quietly to himself as he watched the battle unfold in front of him. As the blow came, Naruto simply ducked, the wind current of the blow blowing his blonde hair sharply to the right as he closed his thumb into a fist. Looking over his shoulder, he narrowed his red-black eyes at the former mist shinobi, who had now brought his blade back to the right and was ready to swing again despite the fact that his foe had dodged the first hit. "Suigetsu, we need him alive. If you lop off his head, he's no good to us." Deidara yelled angrily. Suigetsu ignored his partner because he no longer cared about the leader's plan and was only interested in reclaiming Zabuza's sword and killing this unworthy peasant for daring to wield the weapon in the first place. Rain clouds began to gather as the battle began, blocking out the morning sun and darkening the sky. Thunder started rumbling overhead, and it was clear that a storm was brewing up there, and it was going to be a big one. Suigetsu swung his mighty, spiky-looking sword around again, and everyone was amazed at how quickly Naruto leapt over the wide swing and landed deftly on his feet. Unfortunately for Suigetsu, he had put too much effort into his second swing, leaving his sword hanging to the left and out of harm's way. In other words, he had just exposed himself. That, combined with Naruto's unexpectedly fast movement, was clouding his reaction time with shock and surprise. Years of Sannin training can do that to a man. Surprised that Suigetsu had provided him with an opening, Naruto was not one to pass up such a chance in battle. In an instant, his sword was falling to the ground, as his own feet tapped lightly on the ground. In fact, he adored the "oh crap, I just screwed up and now I'm going to bleed" expression his enemies wore just before he unleashed his wrath on them. Suigetsu, on the other hand, wore a more confident expression. The former mist nin could tell by the look on his face that he had just made a mistake, and he desperately tried to bring his weapon around to block the incoming slash. "It's too slow." Naruto moved quickly, hefting his own weapon with his right hand and slashing down on his opponent. Unfortunately, Naruto's blade had become liquefied in nature and passed through his opponent's entire body. "Do you still think I'm weak?" Suigetsu hissed before solidifying and raising Samahata above his head once more, laughing mockingly. "Fool, you may be a better swordsman than I am, but with the enhancements, shall we say, that Orochimaru did to my body, you will never be able to kill or even hurt me unless you can figure out how to defeat water, ha, ha ha. You have less brains than sword skills, Missy." Naruto smirked at Suigetsu, who looked at the blonde jinchuriki puzzledly. "What are the 9 tails up to?" Deidara wondered quietly. Suigetsu was enraged by Naruto's smirk and insult to his swordsmanship, and he glared at him furiously before yelling in rage. "Damn you to hell, bastard, there won't be enough of you left to stuff into a matchbox when I'm done with you." Suigetsu then attacked again, swinging his sword at Naruto in more complex swordplay forms involving a series of jabs, overswings, and underswings. Madara watched in awe as Naruto effortlessly blocked or dodged all of his partner's sword strikes. Despite his comrade's apparent predicament, he found this quite entertaining to watch. He didn't care what happened to Suigetsu because he had never liked him in the first place. The Two-Tails Jinchuriki felt like she was going to pass out, either from the pain or from the shock of seeing this unknown man practically playing with an Akatsuki member when she had gone all out and not even scratched him. It was almost enough to make her envious, she reasoned. And he doesn't even use all 9 tails. Naruto managed to avoid almost all of them. Suigetsu's final strike involved a wide arc of a hit that, if connected, would most likely destroy his opponent's upper half. Madara, on the other hand, was not completely convinced that Suigetsu would win when the blow made contact with its intended target. When the blow did hit Naruto, everyone noticed that the blonde Jinchuriki had plenty of time to avoid the strike, but he just stood there waiting for the head-on attack. Idiot. Is he attempting to be killed? That was the dominant thought in everyone's mind at the time. But the only thing Naruto did to demonstrate that he was attempting to defend himself was to raise his chakra-cloaked left hand to catch the massive blow unleashed by Suigetsu. The leaf-missing nin grinned at Suigetsu, almost as if he was mocking the Akatsuki member, before saying in a bored tone of voice. "Is that it?" Naruto asked, his voice bored and devoid of pain, but rather of someone who was clearly unimpressed by the attack. Suigetsu began to feel a gnawing fear as he realized he might be in over his head here. What the hell?" Suigetsu exclaimed, suddenly afraid of someone other than Leader Sama when he was angry. As if on cue, Naruto's tone hardened, dripping with derision and disdain, while his chakra pressure suddenly flared around him, leaving Suigetsu and Madara rooted where they stood in fear. "If this is all you've got, Suigetsu, your reputation among the 7 swordsmen of the mist has clearly been exaggerated." Naruto then pushed the shark-like blade away from him with his arm before slowly deepening his grip on the sword with his left hand and releasing a massive amount of killing intent that froze everyone in their place. "I don't like a sword that eats my chakra and pigs out on it soon after getting a taste of what it considers a good meal. Your sword is like a big dumb dog, or in this case shark, that can't stop eating until the food is taken away, and frankly it sickens me. Do you even know the inner workings of your sword?" Naruto asked, pouring more chakra into the sword while twisting and turning it to his liking. "What are you doing?" Suigetsu screamed in terror as he realized he couldn't pry Samahata away from Naruto or even let go of the blade. Naruto turned away from his opponent's terrified question. "Did you know that the main reason your sword can consume so much chakra is that it has its own small network of tunnels to transport and circulate that chakra? Samahata does this to thin it out and dissolve it into the sword. However, just because this sword absorbs or eats chakra doesn't mean it can't be manipulated by the source of the chakra." "What exactly do you mean?" stammered the now panicked Akatsuki member and former Mist Nin, as his hand gripping the sword became hot. "What it means, Missy, is that I'm manipulating the Kyuubi's chakra into your stupid sword even as we speak. And, as I'm sure you've noticed, the temperature of your chakra is rising." Suigetsu screamed in agony and looked down to see his hand holding Samahata begin to boil and bubble, as steam began to emerge from it, and the boiling effect was beginning to travel up his arm towards the rest of his body. Desperately, the former Mist Nin tried to let go of the infamous sharkskin scaled blade in his hand, but to no avail, as Naruto said. "Don't bother trying to let go. The Kyuubi's chakra has gripped the sword. You mentioned earlier that I could never kill you or even hurt you unless I could figure out how to defeat water. So, how about I turn you into a cloud of steam? Is that painful, and will it kill you?" ARGHHHHHHHHHH. The only response Naruto received was a piercing cry of agony and anguish before Suigetsu transformed into an unrecognizable mass of boiling water, which quickly rose into the air as steam before dissipating completely as Samahata fell to the ground with a thud. Naruto then turned his attention to Deidara, only to discover that the blonde Akatsuki member had fled during his battle with Suigetsu. Naruto flashed a devious grin and was about to pursue the fleeing former rock nin when he suddenly stopped and sensed a distinct chakra signature that he recognized with annoyance, causing his red chakra cloak to recede back into him as he growled in anger. "You can come out now, Teme. I can feel you." Sasuke Uchiha emerged from the shadows, saying as he walked calmly towards Naruto. "Excellent work with the water freak Dobi." "Screw your compliments, Uchiha. What do you want?" "I'm here on Lady Tsunade's orders to return you to Naruto's village." "Well, Teme, you squandered a trip because I'm not returning. I'm done with Leaf Village for good. Stop being a jerk, Dobi. I'm not sure what prompted you to leave the village, but you can't stay here. Madara and the other Akatsuki members we were unable to eliminate during the war are still alive and well. If they get their hands on the Kyuubi no Yuko, it will be the end of you and all of us. Naruto, you must return to the village so that we can protect you. As you can see, I'm perfectly capable of dealing with the Akatsuki, so I don't require the village's protection. I'll deal with Madara when it's convenient for me. So return and tell Ba-chan to leave me alone." "I can't do it, Dobi. In this case, you only have 3 options. 1. You return to the Leaf Village peacefully with me. 2. After I finish kicking your ass, you come back to the Leaf Village in pieces with me. Or 3. You leave me with no choice but to eradicate you in accordance with Lady Tsunade's decree in order to keep the Kyuubi out of enemy hands. I don't want to fight you, Naruto, so please return with me. I'm confident that whatever is bothering you can be resolved. There are many people in Konoha who genuinely care about you. So, Ba-chan actually sentenced me to death if I didn't return like a good little dog. Someone else who supposedly loved me abandoning me for their own selfish reasons, how typical. This is all a bunch of nonsense. If there are people in the village who love and care about me and want me to return home, it's only because they haven't had their chance to tear me apart like everyone else who claims to love me has. So fuck them and fuck you, Uchiha, I'm not going back, and that's the end of it. I didn't want it to come to this, Naruto. Sasuke yelled angrily before assuming an attack stance 20 feet away from Naruto. We don't always get our way, Teme. A lesson you never learned as the village's golden boy who got everything he wanted. However, it is a lesson I have had to learn the hard way 3 times in my life. When a shout rang out, Sasuke could only shake his head sadly at his friend and was about to activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. Get off, asshole. A fiery blast of blue chakra slammed into Sasuke from behind, sending the Uchiha hurtling through the air before crashing into a stone wall of the abandoned factory, bringing the majority of it down on top of him. Naruto looked over to see the young woman he had saved from the Akatsuki enveloped in a blue chakra shroud resembling a cat, but the shroud quickly vanished when he saw her fall to one knee in obvious. Ignore me and go finish that guy the first knocked into the wall before he recovers. That was my last shot of chakra, and I'm sure you're running low after your fight. So hurry up and kill that jerk before he wakes up. I can't kill the Teme when he's unconscious, ha, ha, ha. When we fight to the death, it will be when we are both at our peak. He does not deserve anything less, and neither do I. You're an odd jinchuriki. What is your given name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, but most people call me Naruto, answered the blonde leaf missing nin as he removed his mask. Namikaze. Are you related to Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves? He used to be my father. Wow. Your own father sealed the Kyuubi no Yuko demon within you. It's been a barrel of laughs, yeah. So, now that I've told you my name, what's yours? My name is Nii Yugito, and as you may have guessed, I'm the jinchuriki vessel of Nibi the two-tailed cat demon. Well, Yugito, if you're up for it, let's go find that other Akatsuki jerk who was chasing you down and give him a painful death. What do you think? Naruto inquired, picking up Samahada before tucking the mighty sword into a storage scroll. Hello, Namikaze-sama, I'd like that very much. Naruto, Yugito, just call me Naruto. Good day, Naruto-sama. We'll look into it. Hey, Nell-chan, how was the show? Yugito looked up to see a little girl in a green dress with matching colored hair and a strange-looking skull-type hat atop her head clapping and smiling at Naruto sitting in the tree she had been resting against. Naru-kun, you're the best. In response, Nell laughed happily. Come on, Yugito, let me introduce you to Nell, and then we'll go after Deidara and... Naruto was mid-sentence when he felt three all-too-familiar chakra signatures speeding towards them, and the blonde jinchuriki, pinching the bridge of his nose in frustration, could think of only one thing to say. Oh no, not them.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.